What's good, my people? Welcome to Boxing Redeemed, and thank you for watching our first ever video. And if you're new to this channel, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, because I know you're new to this channel because it's my first video. So don't do it, don't forget, just like, share and subscribe, please. Yeah, thank you. Anyway, my name is Godfrey and I'm a boxing fan here at Boxing Redeemed. And also, just a disclaimer, I ain't no expert. I'm not an expert. I'm just a boxing fan that gives their opinion on boxing. Simple. Anyway, listen, I want to give a shout out to Bravos. They've got excellent boxing products. Sorry, Bravos, I've got a bit of ink on this amazing boxing glove. I don't know how that's even got there, to be fair. When you have children, unfortunately these things happen, you see. But look, my point is they've got quality products. Go on bravos.com. Details are in the description below as well. There you can find head guards, boxing accessories, whatever you need, you can find them on there. But let's get to it. Boxing. Saul Canelo Alvarez fought the Russian himself, Dmitry Bivol, last weekend. And was it a major upset? What a fight. Firstly, what a fight. I absolutely enjoyed it. Mate, I think it was a very, very good fight. But I want to go straight into the drama, you see, because we all know Saul Canelo Alvarez has been splendid throughout his whole career. Obviously, up until his loss against Floyd Mayweather, you can see the major improvements that he had in his career. And you can't really fault him for fighting at light heavyweight, because the streak that he's had since losing against Floyd Mayweather has been massive. You know, he felt like he was in his prime. He felt like nobody could beat him. And all of a sudden, there was a man. He found his match, Dmitry Bivol. What a fighter. What a fighter. And yeah, I to be fair, before the fight, I was edging Canelo, because one is I'm a Canelo fan. To be fair, he's probably my favorite fighter. But I said to a lot of my friends that this is a 50-50 fight. You can't just go light heavy and walk through a Russian Dmitry Bivol. You just can't do that. You know, you could tell he has amazing footwork. He comes in and out, and I knew it was going to be a hard night for him. And I felt like the weight is going to be a massive challenge. But I was still edging Canelo. Who doesn't edge Canelo in any fight? So I was really surprised, actually, by just how Dmitry Bivol handled Canelo in a lot of the rounds. But before I even go into that, I think I want to discuss a few things, because the first time I watched the fight, I actually only gave Canelo 2 rounds, you see. And I gave Dmitry Bivol 10 rounds. Now, when I saw the judges' scorecards, I was like, wow, how did they manage to give Canelo the first 4 rounds? Were they trying to rob him? And 115, 113, how is that even possible? That can't be right. That is just insane. And I thought, that can't be correct. He got outclassed that night, you know. And I said, no way. But a friend of mine said it was a really close fight. I said, no, it wasn't. It wasn't a close fight. He said it was. I said, nah, it can't be. I've watched the fight. I watched the fight live. And I saw Canelo get outclassed. But then I said, you know what? I'm going to watch the fight again. And honestly, I had a different take on it. Weird. Really weird. Because I had Canelo winning 4 rounds. And 5 rounds is debatable. 5 rounds is actually debatable, because when I watched the fight, I actually gave Canelo 4 rounds. But then there was a particular round where you could have given it to either fighter. And that was the first round. My rounds, actually, I had Canelo winning the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, and the ninth. And a friend of mine actually had Canelo winning, and my brother, who had Canelo winning the first, second, third, fourth, and the ninth, and Bivol winning the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 10th, 11th, and the 12th. So on my scorecards, I would have had it 116, 112. On my friend's scorecard and my brother's scorecard, they would have had it 115, 113. And imagine this would have been identical to the judges' scorecards. Now, when you look at the judges' scorecards, apart from round 1, their scorecards is literally identical to mine. It's only round 1 that I gave to Bivol. But I gave Canelo the second round, the third round, the fourth, and the ninth. The judges' scorecards had exactly the same with the addition of the first round. And to be fair, I was so surprised how identical it was. And if you're a fan, look, I'm not saying that Canelo, was fantastic that night. However, all I'm saying is, if you've watched the fight and you've watched it live, go and watch it again. I feel like the commentary was probably over-exaggerated quite a lot. Because when you watch it live, you got adrenaline, your favourite fighters fighting, and then when they're losing, you think, oh wow, this isn't going great. But when you actually watch it for the second time, just carefully assess the fight, it makes such a difference. It makes a huge difference, because you see certain punches aren't scoring. They're like Bivol threw a lot of volume punches, but honestly, when you see whether they're scoring punches, they're not landing. They're not landing. A lot of them weren't landing. He was throwing a flurry of punches, but they were not landing, and you can't score them. So the first couple of rounds were actually Canelo's. Watch the fight back. Look, I don't know how Chris Mannix had, I think, 1 or 2 rounds to Canelo in the first couple, but it was wrong. It was absolutely wrong. When you look at the fight and actually carefully assess, Canelo actually won the first couple of rounds. And the fight was close. It's actually funny because Canelo didn't get outclassed. It was 7-5. Many had 7-5. The judges' scorecards were actually, I think, correct. It's weird that I say that, because normally I'm actually against the judges' scorecards. And this time, obviously watching it for the second time, I was like, wow. When the first time, I only gave Canelo 2 rounds. The second time, we've given him 4 rounds, where round 1 is still debatable. You can actually give that round to Canelo. So ultimately, he could have won 5 rounds. So, I'm not upset if an extra round was given to Canelo because of the first. It was, either side. I gave it the first to Bivol, hence why I've only given Canelo 4 rounds. But some had it 7-5, I had it 8-4. So it was a very, very close fight, But Canelo was, he was good on the night as well. But he was also, quite predictable at times. I think there were good things that he did against Bivol. I felt like he was aggressive. I felt like at times he was very good defensively, dodging those flurry of punches. But there were some things that he was doing that was almost predictable at times. We know that he fought against Callum Smith and did a lot of damage on his arm, and I felt like they came with the same game plan. I presume because Bivol was the heavier fighter, and thought, you know what, it's worked really well against Callum Smith, so let's try again against Bivol. But personally, I think it was just too much. Because one is they're not scoring punches, so a lot of these arm punches, it may, some people think it's going to affect them in the long run in the fight, but it didn't affect Bivol at all. I think he was still in gear 3, gear 4. You can even debate he was in gear 3 the whole fight. But then again, and I felt like even though the Canelo won 4 or 5 rounds, Bivol probably gave most of them away, in my opinion. Not saying that, I'm not taking anything away from Canelo, but I felt like Bivol was just in gear 3 in a lot of the rounds. But then again, it was still a very close fight. Up until, I think, the you know, you could say the 10th round. From the 10th round onwards, you can tell Canelo was fatigued, he was tired, and he just, you know, I think gave it all away. The 10th, 11th, and 12th was all given to Bivol. So, yeah, it was a huge fight, a big fight, and you know what? I think a lot of the times when you've got fighters like Canelo or Tyson Fury, it's easy, I think, as a trainer. I want to use the term lazy because I think that's a bit harsh, but I think it's easy to become complacent. I think when you have such a fighter that's so skilled and that's so good and that has such good, you know, boxing generalship and high boxing IQ, you almost become complacent, I think. And whether Eddie Reynoso was complacent in the fight, whether he was complacent, you know, in camp, who knows? Who really knows? Because I do think at times when the boxer has no answer to any of the things that are being thrown at him, this is where I think a lot of the coaches needs to come in and become the helping hand. And we see that in Floyd Mayweather's, you know, you could say career. He was so good, but there were times where he was in trouble, and something had to be said in the corner. And they had such great coaches there where he could turn the fight like that just on his head. And I feel like a lot of these fighters today, they almost struggle to even, you know, turn the fight around. You know, I don't feel like you have to almost turn a fight around in a rematch. You've got 36 minutes, I believe, to change the game. You know, you've got that amount of time to just twist it. You know, okay, let's try something new. Let's see what else we can do. And I felt like Canelo was too complacent. You know, almost showboating a lot of his defensive, you know, skills. Really, he was parrying and dodging, and I understand that Bivol was missing, but almost I felt like Bivol constantly was doing that because he knew nothing was being thrown back. He wasn't really even scared to miss loads of punches. And you have to punish someone who throws flurry of punches, counter them. Canelo is a fantastic counter puncher. This is what I didn't get. He was throwing flurry, volume of punches, and Canelo wouldn't come back with a counter punch left hook or an uppercut, you know. And I think this is where he went wrong. I do think he wasn't on point with that. You know, there was barely any counter punching in that fight. You know, every single time Bivol throws volumes of punches, it would just dodge all of them and nothing will come back. You know, nothing will come back. Constantly Bivol was doing that every single round. Flurry of punches, flurry of punches. Canelo will probably miss all of them, will dodge all of them, but then he wouldn't even attempt to counter. So this is what I didn't understand, you see. But what we have to admit, what Bivol did really, really well. You know, he didn't allow Canelo to get into rhythm at all. You know, every single time Canelo tried to take the center of the ring, Bivol would just back him up, throw flurry of punches. He'll be in and out. He's like a spring. You know, his back foot, his stance even alone is so wide. And it's actually against, you could say, the fundamentals in the UK, or even in boxing in general, where they say that you shouldn't have your stance so wide and drag your back foot. Bivol almost do that to keep that same momentum, and I think to help him counter punch and almost throw with this with a good amount of power in his punches. You know, it's like almost in like a spring in his back foot, and he drags it. It's really strange because, you know, if you go to a boxing gym, they would always say never drag your back foot. So I find it actually quite interesting that he has that particular stance. But no, he was really, really good that night, Dimitri Bivol. Very, very good. But yeah, I just find the sport in general at times, boxing can be an unforgivable sport. I always said that, you know, when a fighter loses, watch what happens. Like, boxing fans just throw them in the bin like that. I was surprised to see that with Canelo. I was expecting people to almost back him up, but no, people just threw him in the bin. It's saying, he was overrated. Oh, he wasn't as good as what people said he was. We saw that against Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua lost against Andy Ruiz. Also the likes of Usyk, and people say he wasn't good enough. His career can be over. And people almost forget what he's done for English boxing. And look at what Canelo's done. He's the face of boxing. It's crazy. Everybody was looking for his downfall, and people got it in the head, and I think it's probably why a lot of fighters probably don't fight each other, because they feel like they're not going to get a second chance in actually redeeming their you could say their resume, really. So I find it quite difficult. But apart from that, Canelo for me is still, you could say, pound for pound #1. You have Terence Crawford up there, but nobody's done what Canelo has done. Nobody has, even Supermo hasn't, and this is Supermo. This is super. Supermo hasn't done what Canelo's done. If you don't know, I get Supermo as well. It's a banger. But yeah, Canelo is up there. You can't. Well, what are you going to do with Canelo? You're going to drop him out of the pound for pound ranking? You can't. You can't. He's going to be easily still top 3. For me, still #1. Yeah, I understand the point. I get it, what the pound for pound ranking is, but I remember when Lomachenko lost, people threw him in the bin. Crazy. But what is next for Canelo? What's next for Canelo? If I was his promoter, well, if he won 4 or 5 rounds, I don't see why he can't win the rematch. Personally, I can't see why he won't be able to win it. I do think he can. I think if he obviously probably works on his fatigue, his stamina a little bit, I think he can win that rematch. Some people think, oh no, he's got no chance, but at the end of the day, he won 4 to 5 rounds, and it's not just by the judges' scorecards. If you think he's won 1 or 2 rounds or 3 rounds, trust me, go and watch the fight again. Look, I'll give you those rounds specifically. These are the rounds that I've given him: the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, and the 9th. Arguably, you can actually give him the 1st as well. And this is literally matched to the judges' scorecards. So if I was Canelo and your fighter, I think you would rematch him. What else are you going to do? You're going to fight Triple G. You're going to go back to 168, which is your probably the arguably the strongest weight for you. Or you go ahead and take away and fight Bivol. I would personally fight Bivol again at 175, beat him, move on, and become undisputed. Now, people are going to say Beterbiev, he ain't going to go through him. Well, you know what? I think Artur Beterbiev is an easier fight than Bivol because of styles. I think Beterbiev is a fantastic fighter, but I think he's a bit more stationary. He's been put down a couple of times in his career as well. So I do think that Bivol is definitely a harder fighter than Beterbiev, and it was a close fight. But yeah, what can I say? You can go back down to 168. You could go back down to 168 and defend his titles. or he can right his wrong. And I think he can do it. I do think he's capable of doing it. Just a few tweaks in his arsenal, and he should be fine. He should be fine. He has the power. He can hurt a lot of people. He just need to be able to, you know, be more effective and use your jab. He didn't even use his jab that fight. He didn't even use it. He had no jab in that fight. It was just throwing loads of hard punches, a lot of power punches, and he got frustrated, you can see. But even being frustrated, he still won 4 or 5 rounds. So just a few tweaks and he can win that fight for sure, 100%. But anyway, Boxing Redeemed, we're out. Thank you for watching our first ever video. Thank you for getting to this place. Again, we will be back. Boom.